Stuart Weinstein from Legal Talk. Today's a State of the Union episode. Usually I have prestigious, distinguished guests on the show, and we talk about a wide range of topics. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go through the topics that we've discussed. We're going to go through the different episodes and give you a recap as to where Legal Talk is going, where the different things are going, and some thoughts and insights as to where things are going as we progress into 2012. So back in December, we started Legal Talk, December of 2011, and our very first episode was Michelle Oliveira, where we talked about an online web presence. The second episode was with Mario Paserno and Vincent Vomero, and that was with Remax Hallmark Real Estate. And I kept calling him Homestead. I kept saying Remax Homestead, but it was Remax Hallmark. And we talked about the selling and the buying of real estate. We made some commercial references, but it was more residential. And we talked about sort of safety and the things that you need to know in the real estate market. Third episode was Eleanor Rennie, and Eleanor Rennie was with Print3, is still with Print3, and we talked about printer security, the whole aspect of using printing services. How do you protect your tangible and intangible property? And then we had Harry Blair, and Harry is a civil litigation lawyer. We talked about the whole concept of what was there and when you're looking to purchase a lawyer and the prices of lawyers. We then talked with Zeev Kruger from Austin. There was an episode on roller derby. We had come in from the World Cup. I had met him at the World Cup, which was held in Toronto, where you had 13 teams from all over the world that was put on by Blood and Thunder. And as a result of that, Legal Talk has talked about the whole aspects of the sports and the legal piece. And at that point, we had shown our commercial where Weinstein Paralegal Professional Corporation was a sponsor. Then we saw Bill Hulque, and Bill Hulque is family and then a criminal lawyer focusing on the criminal aspect after spending X number of years in family law. And we also looked at his real estate investments and things that he's invested in and developed in order to build his practice, but also build his passion. We talked about you have to really enjoy what you're doing, and Bill's a great example of that. We then had Phil Tinianoff, and he talked about incorporation. So you finish not being able to find employment, you go and start your own business. How do you set yourself up so that you're in a position to get the most and protect yourself from any legal opportunities or legal problems that may result? Then we had the wrongful convictions, and that was a Skype in-studio broadcast with Fernando Bermudez, Barry Pollock, Sean McDonald, Alan Young, and Ron Dalton. Whole aspect of the wrongful accused, wrongfully convicted, and how people in the legal system, as well as people who were wrongfully accused, how they put their lives back together. We then had Howard Warren, and Howard Warren is a lawyer, and we talked about mediation, alternative dispute resolutions, arbitration, and everything necessary in the traditional court system. We then had Philip Villers, French, so Phil Villers, and we talked about the health and the medical insurance piece. Michael Moore did a movie, Sicko, which talked about the U.S. system, U.S. style of health medical insurance compared to, say, Canada or England, where everything is covered. One of the most traumatic pieces in Sicko is where this gentleman had his hand cut off by, I believe it was a saw, and he had his choice of $10,000 to put together his one finger or $60,000 to put down his hand. So the fact is that the medical system in the U.S. is still very much a commercial product as opposed to something that is considered a health system like it is in Canada, Cuba, as well as England. We then had Nikki Thomas and Ron Marzell. Nikki is the executive director of the Sex Professionals of Canada, and talking about the whole aspect of the legal and the case that's going now between the Ontario Court of Appeal and eventually into the Supreme Court, where they're talking about the different things that prostitutes, professionals is more or less the best way of doing it. We're getting away from hookers and prostitutes, more sex professionals, things that they're not allowed to do in public that you would be able to do when you're purchasing another product or service. We then had Dan Legault, who is the president of Antibi Therapeutics, and he talked about hydrogen sulfides, which are gaseous mediators, which effectively means that they've taken off-patent medications and improved them by using hydrogen sulfide. We then had John and Marissa Singleton, which was a very informative episode. John's a prominent lawyer in the U.S. Marissa Singleton, a.k.a. Joy Collision, was the team captain at the World Cup for Team USA that won the first roller derby World Cup, and also their Canada's connection. He has a former individual who's the mayor of Edmonton. His great-grandfather started the Northwest Mounted Police, Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, basically based on that. And that episode actually came out of Detroit. So Detroit and the U.S. are much closer. Detroit, U.S. Canada and the U.S. are much closer than one may think. And if you go, for example, to Montreal, Quebec City, there's a place there that gives a reenactment of North America pretty much from the time of the Mayflower to where Quebec and the U.S. and Canada. So that was a very interesting episode as well. We then had Steve Indig, who talked about sports law and that whole area of safety in sports. We had mentioned the tragedy befallen Sarah Burke, as well as the other tragedy in luge during the Vancouver Olympics. Vancouver Olympics has now been the first Olympics where Canadians have won gold on home soil. We then had Todd Axel, Arnaldo Curiel, and Jeff Gardner with Shop with Cops, where we talked about how this is based out of Minneapolis, how this whole aspect of you can prevent from a young age kids getting in crime, where the whole aspect of they shopped with cops, either Target or Walmart, or the laundry doctor gave an opportunity for people to be able to purchase products from gift certificates and shop with police officers in uniform to break that divide between the general public and police officers. We then had an episode with the Law Society, Bill Gilmore, Neil Perrier, and David Seed, and we talked about regulators. We talked about, there's 40 regulators in Ontario, but not just Ontario, across Canada, the U.S., the good, bad, and ugly, in which we showed a beating heart as one example, a Linda Blair green slime, head spinning on the other, and something in between. Are regulators above the law? Do they treat people fairly? Is it transparent? How much did they make? And more information will be brought about that in future episodes. Also, the whole concept of the Sunshine List, Ontario, where if you're making over $100,000, you have to report how much you're making. Do other provinces, do other states, and do other countries have that? We then had Noel Biederman from Ashley Madison, president of Ashley Madison. And Ashley Madison, once again, we talked about this whole aspect of classiness and being able to sell a product or service that people need, and look at the fact of job creation and entrepreneurship. Then we had the Stephen Murrow and Jen McCrae, who are in the middle of a class action EI lawsuit, and the piece of suing that and the whole aspect where that's going, and how the Canadian government's not necessarily responsive, and how the EI system, is it working, is it broken? Social systems in general, are they working, are they broken? We then had Sean Saulnier, Virginia Kaler, and Mark Creedon. They are, in terms of the whole aspect of battered woman, which change more violence against women is a more sort of appropriate way of talking about the subject and how it's sort of built into the system. We then had Don Hopkins, who is the Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operating Officer, I got that wrong again, Chief Operating Officer and Vice President Development for Two Men in a Truck Canada. There's a Two Men in a Truck in the US version, Two Men in a Truck Canada, and avoiding moving nightmare stories. We then had Lauren King, Sarah Coles, and Sherry Benayan, who talked about the fitness area, how you can have fitness in your life so you can make a lot of money, enjoy what you're doing, but also need to have fitness, whether it's running, whether it's tennis, whether it's roller derby, whether it's any type of sport, cross-country skiing. You need to have that as part of your lifestyle. It makes you feel better, improves your performance all around. We then had today Mark Gordon, who talked about marketing and talked about a couple of things: being classy, not canceling on the last minute, not backstabbing, but as well as the whole aspect of where is your signposts? Where are the places that you're going in entrepreneurship? You've decided you're starting your business. You're going from not having a business to starting your own business. Where are you going from that? And today, the State of the Union, going over, this has been the 24th episode that Legal Talk has been with the All TV network. So where does Legal Talk want to go? Where are other episodes we want to go? What are some of the other things that we're looking to do? Well, for one thing, the unemployment epidemic is still a very important issue that needs to be talked about further. And however it's addressed, the whole fact that it's one of the most lucrative industries out there, how do people get in a situation where they're not owing debt, they're able to have a business and actually make money and be able to create jobs for other people as well? We talked about the whole concept in December 2012, having $1 million through investors, advertisers, sponsors, and viewership, and being able to give that money back into the community through however breakdown, through charity projects, through supporting entrepreneurship, through doing other reality shows on a whole wide myriad of products and services and topics and themes. That's pretty much where the reality shows are going now. They're going to be teamwork reality shows. They're not going to be reality shows where it's backstabbing or it's I win, you lose. It's going to be where everyone wins. Extreme Makeover Home Edition has been pretty much 7, 8 episodes, has the only reality show that does that, so there's currently a huge wide berth for that. The Amazing Race, there's some aspects of it that's good. It's still the elimination. Redemption with Mr. O'Leary, the same thing. Helping, the concept of helping people who have been in prison, helping them get their lives together is good, but it doesn't have to be one versus all. So we'll be looking at things like that over the course of future episodes. The whole aspect of what a licensed paralegal can do versus hiring a lawyer. Lawyers tend to be competent but much more expensive versus doing it on yourself because the legal area of law is getting more complicated, especially small claims, which is currently $25,000 and most likely will be going up in the future. As far as my goals and dreams and my wish list, at some point I'd like to see myself going into HD, 1080p. I'd like to see myself eventually getting into Red, which is 4,000. I'd like to see doing on-location shoots. There's a Quarry episode we'd like to do. I'd like to do CES in Vegas. And I'd like to see being able to do a higher quality and building on the success. I think the guests we've had on the show have been high, have been prestigious, and been distinguished. I just like to be able to raise the bar for prestigious plus, distinguished plus. There's episodes I'd like to do within All Talk TV, doing an episode with David Grossman and where he's going in terms of entrepreneurship, doing one with Lior, and his last name is very prestigious, very Russian. He's a very good Russian dancer, but he's also a very good filmmaker who's going to be having Oscar potential. So watching him, watching the youth, where the youth are going. So my name is Stuart Weinstein. Investors, sponsors, advertisers, and certainly viewership is important as I move to other products and services within the All Talk TV network. You can reach me on Twitter at WLegal, www.legalall.info, 416-224-0200. You can see and you can connect with the other guests that we've had over the past 3 months on All Talk TV as we strive to other episodes in 2012. This is Stuart Weinstein, open to your feedback, and once again, this is a great place for your products and services, a great place to be able to invest your money to be able to get out to the viewing audiences. So, State of the Union address from All Talk TV and Legal All. This is Stuart Weinstein, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today.